Hi everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another card video. In this video, I'm making a card using the new Hero Arts and Blot shop collaboration set called Please Deliver. This is 6x8 set and it's made for envelope art. You can use all these elements onto an envelope, however you can make it a card. So that's what I'm gonna do in this video. As well, I'll use a sentiment from a little bit older stamp sets from Hero Arts. I have few on my side, and towards the end of the video, I decided to use the Crafty messages instead of the one that I just show you, the little thin sentiments. I wanted something a little bit more chunky. So I'm using my MISTI. I'm gonna stamp this border of envelopes 3 times. And since the stamp is wider than my watercolor paper panel, I'm using my creative corners along with the MISTI, and I'm using black ink to stamp onto the watercolor cardstock. Usually ink dries a little bit slower on watercolor cardstock, especially when you stamp it a few times compared to other cardstock, so I decided to emboss it with ultra fine clear embossing powder. So I have that one image, one line of envelopes. Now I'm going to move the creative corners, and I'm using another ruler there to get, it's about 1 inch difference, so I'm just moving it a little bit, positioning it so the envelopes don't overlap each other. So I'm securing with a bunch of magnets here to make sure that that stays in place while I stamp. I'm using anti-static powder tool, so when I apply that embossing powder, I don't have embossing powder all over the other parts of my panel. So just sticks where we have stamped with ink. I'll hit set that one, and I'll go one more time and stamp a third time. Again, I'll move that creative corner a little bit higher. Just positioning. I want it to be the same distance as the first two rows of envelopes are. So I think that looks good. A little bit more down, just a smidge. And I think that's perfect. I'm adding ink to my stamp. I'm gonna stamp a couple times to make sure, because it's cold pressed watercolor paper and it has a little bit rougher texture. So stamping it a few times ensures that I have nice impression. And then I embossed it in using clear embossing powder. Next, I'm using Karin watercolor markers, and I'm gonna add some color to the envelopes. I'm going in rainbow order, but first I'm doing the hearts, and I'm going with kind of coral and pink hearts. And I'm going every other one. I'm just using water brush to spread that color. So now I'm gonna speed up here, and because it's pretty easy coloring, there's nothing special about it. I'm just adding color where I want my darker shades to be, and then just using the water brush, I'm spreading it around. Next, for the green, I decided to make green and like sulfur yellow were kind of very close to each other, so I added a little bit darker green on top after I was done with my red shades and before I went into the magenta or fuchsia. So I'm just doing the red here. I already did yellow, orange, green. So now I'm going back and adding the darker green. Kind of made more difference. So we have one more envelope here. And then I'll go with that fuchsia. I'm gonna finish up here coloring the envelopes. So next, after I'm done here, I'm just trying out some of the gray markers, and I decided to go with warm gray. I'm just outlining the envelopes and blending that color. So doing this makes the images pop up so they don't appear flat on your surface. Kind of gives them more dimension and more depth. So I'm just quickly going with that marker and then blending it with my water brush. So we're done here. Next, I'll stamp the sentiment. I'm using the Crafty sentiments, and I'm using You're My Inspiration. I'll stamp with watermark, the embossing and watermark ink. I'm stamping 3 times, and I'm adding white embossing powder. Next, I will heat set that embossing powder to melt, and I'll trim this one to size to make this make it like strip for my card. Next, I'm trimming the panel down to 4 by 5¼ inches. I'm adding adding up some foam tape on the back of my sentiment, making sure that's straight and centered there. And to finish off my card, I'm making my top folding black note card using pitch black cardstock, measuring 4¼ by 11 inches and a score than 5½. And just using fun foam, I'm adhering the panel onto the note card. Next, I have a Hero Arts envelope here, and since the stamp set is made for envelope art, I decided to stamp that grid here in black and do deliver to. I could have stamped it in different color. I just decided to go with black. And here I'm doing that line of envelopes. I'm going with bubblegum, but I thought I should have gone with black and then just added some color to the hearts. So here's the final card. Thanks for watching and see you soon in another video. Bye!